lo-fi on. You can't hear it, but I like having lo-fi on during the pod. It just, helps the vibes.
Lo-fi to relax to, baby. Let's go.
All right, John, the Seahawks 2026 free agency is well underway. We've had a few signings, and just in general, the NFL has had a lot of free agency signings happen over the last couple of days. So we will talk about that, along with the college basketball conference tournaments that have happened, as well as a little bit of Mariners news that has been going on, a little bit of WBC, that kind of stuff. Anything to say before we get started?
Just excited, man. This is a fun time of year, a lot going on. Yeah, let's do it.
It's our favorite time of the year because next week we get to do our March Madness bracket, and we always do so great. It's just, we make the people so much money.
Oh, so good.
All right, well, for those of you listening to the pod on podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen, you will hear some Coyote Picnic right about now. But for those of you on YouTube, we will stay live. John, so let's talk who the Seahawks lost. I think that's the biggest deal first, because obviously, basically the first piece of news that came out for NFL free agency was that Kenneth Walker was signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. I almost said Bengals. That would have been bad. Kansas City Chiefs, and he signed for 3 years, $42 million. Just give me your gut reaction. What was the thought process once you heard that?
Honestly, the thought process was thank God. Obviously, Kenneth, a beloved Seahawk running back, particularly coming off that MVP performance in the Super Bowl. Huge part of this season, will be remembered for what he did this season, certainly, and had a really good tenure with the Seahawks. But there were a combination of factors that just made it, I think, untenable. I mean, he's obviously a very explosive guy, but he's a guy that really struggled to bring it down to down. And his tenure with the Seahawks has been these glimpses of excellence with, some more disappointing performances scattered in. And then he was amazing in the most important game of the season, which was going to increase the value that he had to be paid quite a bit. And this is a Super Bowl winning team that is trying to retain a bunch of guys. So put all those things together, and you've got a formula that just makes it really hard to retain Kenneth Walker. And I was worried that they were going to overpay at running back and then lose a lot more guys, along the defense and offense.
Yeah, let me tell you, I think the thought process for Kenneth Walker was 100% right. Go get your bag, go do your thing. Like, he's a guy who deserves it, right? $14 million a year is pretty good. I think the Seahawks the average amount that that I was hearing from the Seahawks was around $12 million. So they were a couple million off, but I think at the time, you kind of saw the John Schneider reactions with Kenneth Walker during the parade and everything like that. Like, we could kind of tell that the Seahawks were ready to move on from paying Kenneth Walker. And with that being the case, I was also kind of okay with it, because Kenneth Walker is a guy who, since his rookie season, has basically played more or less 10 games a season, right? He's been injured half the year, every single year, and it feels like the Chiefs think that they're getting an every game, every down back, and that's just not the kind of guy that Kenneth Walker has been for the Seahawks, and I don't know that the NFL really realizes that. So I am very, very happy with the Seahawks getting out of that and, being able to work with and work on finding a different running back. We'll see who they end up going for, but do you have any more thoughts on Walker before we talk about who could be a replacement, what they could look for here?
No, and I just, for what it's worth, I don't want to come off as harsh. Obviously, really fun player to watch, fun part of the team, huge part of winning the Super Bowl, which is the ultimate goal of a team.
Yeah.
So certainly no ill will. Good for him getting the bag. I'm glad he's going to a good team. To your point, I'm not sure he's going to be the answer to all their prayers in terms of revitalizing that run game, but happy for Kenneth. Big praise to him. But no, I do just think it's not the right team, not the right fit. So, smart move.
Yeah, so in terms of other running backs that are on the board even, it feels like the Seahawks are kind of just like, hey, as of right now, it feels like the Seahawks are kind of just like, hey, Zach Charbonnet is going to be our guy. We're going to make do with whatever we can do for the start of the 2026-2027 season, and we'll go from there. Is there anybody that's really piquing your interest? Because even a guy like, I don't know, you had Travis Etienne, who was kind of like a little bit rumored to be not going to the Seahawks, but linked to the Seahawks. Even a guy like Rachaad White recently, who just signed with the Commanders today. You had Kenneth Gainwell going to the Bucs, really wanting to split time with Bucky Irving. Apparently, I don't know. There's just a lot of running back by committee type situations that are going on, and it feels like the Seahawks don't really have that for the start of the season, but they want that when Charbonnet comes back, because that's what was so successful for them. Do you have anybody that you're really seeing that they should go for, or do you think they're going to draft one?
I do think drafting one could very much be in the cards. I think, trouble with winning the Super Bowl is you get the 32nd overall pick.
Yeah.
They have their first 3-round picks and then are missing their 4th and 5th. So they only have 4 picks this season, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 6th. And those are all at the bottom of the rounds. Using the 64th overall pick, a late 2nd round pick, to get one of the better running backs in this draft, I think would be a reasonable allocation of resources, considering the need and the way that, we can expect this team to want to run the ball. So I think that might be a decent place to go and try to snag one. Obviously, they're not in the love business. They're not getting that high in the draft to be able to snag him. So I do think draft is probably most realistic. One idea that I do just find kind of fun is who did the Saints sign at running back? They just got one of the better ones.
That was Etienne.
Thank you, Travis Etienne.
Yep.
And with him going, that means they're going to certainly be trying to get out of the Kamara business, the Alvin Kamara business. I think he's still under contract. He is under contract, so it would be a trade. His trade value is going to be very low to the ground because he's so old and because there is some money on his contract. Not sure the Seahawks could make the money work, but whatever they would have to give up, I think would be worth. If Calvin was just a way cheaper version, I think he can give you a lot of what Kenneth gave you, particularly the pass catching out of the backfield where he's probably still the best in the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's a question of how the Seahawks want to build it when it comes to allocating the resources when it comes to Kamara's contract. I don't hate the thought. For Kamara, I know he wants to retire a Saint. Like that's kind of I think a general agreement that like he's going to play his last game as a New Orleans Saint. So we'll see if he's even on the table or if he's going to be the guy who just is around while ETN steps in. With regards to other guys, I really thought they might have been on like an Algier or something like that. But I do like the idea of going for that late 2nd round pick, taking maybe a little bit of an early swing on a running back because they were able to sign, who was Josh Jobe, I believe, was the guy that they were able to sign in free agency already in terms of DBs. But they will probably slot somebody in their defensive back or as a defensive back for that first pick, whether it's a cornerback or safety or whatever it is. I would expect them to take a DB with that pick number 32. In terms of that 2nd round pick, I wouldn't be opposed to a Jonah Coleman. I wouldn't be opposed to like a Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame, the Jeremiah Love backup, who people are pretty high on right now. It really depends on Mike Washington's been linked to the Seahawks a lot. He had a really good combine. So it really depends on what the Seahawks saw and kind of how the market shapes up for running backs. But we might see the Seahawks take the 2nd or 3rd running back off the board with that late 2nd round pick. So that could be some interesting stuff for them in terms of shooting for a guy who is more, higher tested when it comes to his skills from the combine. In terms of trade, I really don't know. Besides some of these older vets, I don't really know who they could even go for that's available, right? You think of a guy, maybe they could peel away. The Buccaneers were not, they've built around Bucky Irving a little bit. Maybe the Buccaneers don't really like him as much. Maybe you go for him. But I think long term, they probably want to draft a running back and use that contract for the future.
100%. Yeah, and then I do think the draft is a reasonable spot. The Jonah Coleman idea is very fun, obviously. we like that kind of thing a lot. He's a guy, I want him to succeed so bad. Part of me wants to stay out of, the Seahawks business just because if he doesn't work out, it's just going to be a double dagger.
Yeah.
And you just worry about his game, at his size and his speed translating, even though he has everything else around the edges. Yeah, a guy like Mike Washington is obviously way more of a stud. If you could put Jonah Coleman's head in his body, you'd have something really special. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I bet you the draft is where they address it. Part of the nice team, we'll talk about some of the other losses, but this team is very deep, and they didn't lose much on offense. So the idea of getting basically your choice of the running backs besides Jeremiah Love, I think that's an exciting opportunity. And normally, you hate these normally you're like a running back in the 2nd round, but with the 64th pick on a team this good, a good running back will make a big difference.
Yeah, one other thing to note, we talked about this a little bit last week, but the Seahawks don't have a lot of picks this draft. I think they have 4 or 5. Like they're missing, yeah. I think their 5th or 6th round pick, 5th and 6th. Is that what they traded away for Shaheed? 4th and 5th? Yeah. So they don't have a ton of flexibility when it comes to this draft unless they're one to adjust next year's draft to move forward, but then you're just kind of like kicking the can down the road a little bit. So I think they'll probably want to use this draft as what they hope is a bridge year, and if the team can continue to be great like they were last year, they can just fill in a couple of smaller spots and work out of there. We have yet to talk about the Rashid Shaheed contract. Do you want to dive into that, or is there anything else you want to talk draft-wise?
Before we talk additions, because there are a couple guys coming back, let's just finish talking about guys that are out.
Fair.
So Kenneth was our only offensive player note to leave. We lost 3 on the defense. Boye Mafe at linebacker, Kobe Bryant at safety, and Reek Woolen at cornerback. Reek went to the Eagles, Kobe to the Bears, Boye to the Bengals. Sorry, Boye. He's standing out as the one guy that went to a pretty bad team. Of those 3, anybody that hurts, anybody that you're happy to see go? I think I know the answer.
I think the Eagles are the perfect fit for Reek Woolen. I'm gonna put that one out there. I think the Eagles are probably my favorite fit for Reek Woolen out of any team. So happy for him to go over there, go somewhere where he's going to, get a starting spot and play to his heart's content. I'm a little upset that Kobe went to the Bears. I think he was a really nice piece that the Seahawks really kind of developed into a really good piece. So the fact that he's going to the Bears, a team that, for all intents and purposes, the Seahawks are probably going to be competing against next year in the playoffs. It hurts to see, but I think it's a good signing for him. Boye Mafe, I think the Bengals just needed to make a signing. They need to bolster up their offensive line before they really do anything else. So to get Boye is totally fine, but I think they'll work on they've been working on some other stuff. So it's not a huge signing for them.
For sure. I do just think in terms of losses, you're right. Kobe's the one that hurts the most. If you look at our depth chart, we're okay at safety, but it probably opens up a need in the draft to go after another safety. The bigger need will be cornerback. We're both glad to see Reek gone for several reasons. He's a good player, but he got money from the Eagles that we weren't willing to give him, and there was just a lot of off-the-field stuff. I heard a great stat about him today, actually, that he had more taunting penalties last year than any other team in the NFL at 3. The most any other team had that last season was 2. So, setting records for taunting.
What a guy.
And good player, but we're not. I also saw a great article about him. When they put those, punned article titles, it was called Irreconcilable Differences. I thought that was fantastic. So not a big surprise. We knew, we suspected Reek would be gone, and we knew we were going to have to lose a couple of these, second, third contract defenders just because this team is so deep and so talented. Kobe's the one that hurts. Boye, good for him, but our linebacking room is so deep that it's one we can afford to lose. I think what this shows is it's going to be cornerback in the draft, probably safety in the draft, and then the other big need is running back. Those are first, second, third round picks. If we go to those 3 positions, I'm going to feel really good about this team.
Yeah, there's still a bit of a question about the line. They were able to do a lot of work, and I think the Kubiak kind of zone scheme helped them a lot last year when it came to the running game and how Sam Darnold was able to roll out and be mobile. But with that, I think there's probably a need for a draft or drafting some form of lineman. We'll see if that is more of an early round pick or a later round pick. But like we said, they don't have those 4th and 5th rounders. So that's going to be a little tricky to see whether they go for, a DB plus that running back position plus a lineman and then kind of push those later defensive back picks like safeties and stuff like that into the later rounds, or whether they take a tackle or something or a guard in the latter rounds of the draft. But we can move on. Let's talk Shaheed. I want to talk Shaheed because it's kind of the biggest thing that the Seahawks have done so far. 3 years, $51 million, I believe is what it was. AAV, $17 million a year. When you saw those numbers, what did you think? What was the gut instinct? Was this a good deal, bad deal? How did we feel about it?
It is funny how our perception of contracts gets so warped position by position.
Yeah.
Where it's like you got your quarterbacks, and then, not as far behind your quarterbacks as you would think, you find your, elite defensive edge players, where it's like, I can't remember the name of the guy, the Eagles guy that just went to Carolina. Phillips?
Yeah, Jalen Phillips.
Jalen Phillips, thank you. He's making like $38-40 million a year, and it's like, that's quarterback money, but that's what you can get if you're a really elite pass rusher. But next on that list is wide receivers, and it can always it throws you off a little bit. When I saw 3 for 51, I was scared. And then I saw the Alec Pierce contract for my beloved Indianapolis Colts, and I was like, oh, no, that's a good deal for Shady. So I just needed to dial it in a little bit. I do think that's probably fairly close to market value for him. But I think he really wanted to be back. I think he liked his fit on this team, which is ironic because we weren't feeding him the ball the way that he was with New Orleans. But, he's choosing to come back. I bet you there are teams that would have given him 17 or even a little bit more per year. Patriots stand out as a team that could really use a guy like him. But yeah, I mean, what he provides on this team is really important. Torrey Horton, gives you maybe 70% of that. But that last 30% you get being just one of the fastest guys in the NFL is a big deal.
Yeah, I wanted to look at his stats while he was with New Orleans versus when he was with the Seahawks, and it's kind of interesting how different they are compared to, it seems like he wanted to come back. But so in 9 games for New Orleans, he had 66 targets, 44 receptions for basically 500 yards. And with the Seahawks, he was in 9 games. He only started 4 of them, but that's, starting games doesn't really matter. 26 targets for 15 receptions and a little under 200 yards. So basically, the Seahawks had him for the same amount of time, but used him a lot less. Obviously, they liked him out of the punt returning, division, but they really didn't get a ton of use out of him compared to New Orleans, who was really slinging the ball. They were down a lot, so it made a lot of sense. The Seahawks wanted to run, but I think usage-wise, you would almost expect a guy like Shaheed to get more usage based on how he was playing with New Orleans. Do you think we're going to see the New Orleans version of him, or do you think we're going to see the Seahawks version of him looking at the next few years?
Probably something in between. I mean, when you have a player like JSN that gets so much of your offensive attention, it's going to, hurt everybody else's numbers. I think what you can look at is you can look at a guy like Cooper Kupp as a guy that, especially in the regular season when defenses aren't paying as much attention, they're getting the ball to JSN because what he can do with it is very special. But you see in the postseason, oh, no, Cooper's role in this offense was bigger than we thought just based on the numbers, because when defenses start focusing in on JSN, we're getting the ball to Cooper a lot. I see that continuing to grow with Rashid. I do think the answer's in between. I'm sure part of the reason he came back is because there were discussions during the season and during the offseason about, hey, man, we want to get you to be a bigger part of this offense. They've got the quarterback in the NFL that loves throwing the ball downfield more than anybody. You'd think Shaheed is an ideal weapon for a guy like Sam Darnold. So I just think fit-wise, it's a great fit. And, yeah, I'm sure him and the team as a whole are thinking about this as a collaboration and a way to get more integrated with a full season under their belt.
Yeah, I think going along with the 3-year contract, you have to look at that and think that the Seahawks need a number 2 to kind of be alongside JSN for the foreseeable future. The Seahawks are planning for everything that everybody's heard. It's the Seahawks are planning to extend JSN sometime this year, get it in early before I think it's a year before his contract is up, so that they can get an early extension, pay him a little bit less before the cap goes up, that kind of thing. So that sounds like what the Seahawks are going to do, and it's really nice to know that Shaheed's going to be around for a couple of years. He is 27, which speed guys, I don't love how old he is. He's kind of going to fade by the end of his tenure with the Seahawks. But like you said, Torrey Horton's going to be a really nice piece to learn behind Shaheed and keep getting better. We already saw really good things out of him early last year before he had that injury. So we'll see how things progress. But I really like the combo of Shaheed and Horton. And then looking at, Kupp will be around for another year or maybe 2. I don't remember if his contract is another year after this one.
I think they signed him for a 3-year deal.
That sounds right. But and then
I think it's 2 more years.
Yeah, and then you have JSN. So that receiving core is pretty solid. I like, Shaheed's kind of in his prime right now. JSN's going to be great for the next few years. So I really like where we're at. It's just kind of building around the running backs so that you don't have to rely solely on those receivers, as we said. So I think I'm in agreement with you. The Shaheed contract might seem like a bit much, but I think it's kind of perfect for the next few years and what we're going to expect to see out of him.
Yeah, the other nice thing is, again, I'm kind of predicating this on the idea. I really hope, again, maybe that second-round pick, go and get a good running back in this draft. But this team wants to be balanced, and I do think with the running back gap filled, and if you have JSN, Shaheed, Cooper Kupp, and Torrey Horton in kind of that 4th role as he gets healthy again, it's a nice 4-headed receiving core.
Yeah.
Our boy Jake Bobo sitting back there for however he's used. That and the 2 catching tight ends in Arroyo and Barner. I just think, yeah, you got weapons figured out. It's not going to be the best receiving core in the NFL, but they have the best defense in the NFL. You know, they don't have to focus on that. So, yeah, it's a lot of money, but we both really like him. And if he can bring it a little bit more offensively and keep the special teams efficiency up, you know, he's giving you really good value as kind of a dual threat guy.
Yeah. Yep. All right. One other signing that the Seahawks had that was probably their second biggest signing was the Josh Jobe re-signing, which was very nice. He hit free agency, and I think the Seahawks were like, "Hey, we need to retain one of these defensive backs." So currently, he is slated as the cornerback alongside Devin Witherspoon. And then in terms of depth, we only have Nehemiah Pritchett as a cornerback. That's our third and final cornerback. And then with regards to safety, we have Julian Love still and Nick Emenwari, and then Ty Okada is our third string safety. But that's kind of it. Those are our defensive backs, and I think Okada is more of a replacement level player or like below replacement level player. And then you look at Pritchett, and he's probably along the same lines. I think the Josh Jobe signing was super necessary. We get him for 3 years, $24 million. What were your thoughts? You saw that, and then were you thinking, great signing, great piece?
Huge. He's awesome. We both really like him. He's a dynamic player. And you couldn't let him and Reek walk out the door. That was the only argument really about, oh man, should we keep Reek, is kind of the assumption, okay, if Jobe's gone, who do we have? Obviously when you have a guy like Witherspoon, the guy plays a lot of snaps. Nehemiah Pritchett isn't going to get loads and loads of time. But yeah, getting that right cornerback solidified with Josh Jobe, very big. And even with that being the case, I still think you need one more. So free agency is not over yet. We can see if we sign one in free agency, but otherwise that will definitely be a need in the draft. More than safety, maybe second only in my mind to running back.
You know what's crazy is Devin Witherspoon was obviously the number 5 pick a couple years back, but we got Nick Emenwari with the second round pick last year. Like the Seahawks have kind of shown a capability of drafting great defensive players that can play these kind of combo defensive back spots. And I would there's a world where we look for them to do the same thing here with that 32nd pick. I don't know exactly who that would be in terms of who they've seen that's the most similar to the talent level of those guys. But the Seahawks have really shown a penchant for being able to do that, which is super nice.
For finding and developing. I mean, what you saw with Witherspoon and Nick is that, they like guys with, kind of the Colts method of drafting where they like figures. They like tall, long, fast. We can teach you the rest. And that, that makes it easy as a GM, a front office guy. You don't have to worry so much about a guy fitting in scheme-wise. You can worry more about, does he have the skill, does he have the, I guess not skill set, but does he have the figure for it, and then trust it to the coaching staff.
Yeah, a guy that I've been keeping my eyes on at UW. I'm not saying the Seahawks are going to draft another UW guy. We love our UW guys, but Ephesians Pryzak is a guy who got a little bit of chatter after his combine because he had just such a good combine. And he's a defensive back out of UW, and I over the last few years I've just been impressed by him as a player. So he's a guy who I think the Seahawks could maybe look at when it comes to just talent wise. He's got the body for it. But yeah, keeping our eyes on those cornerbacks that can be physical, safeties that can be physical and move around, be in different positions, I think are the places to be and places to look for when it comes to the Seahawks draft. All right, John, is there anything else you want to get through when it comes to the Seahawks or anything like that before we jump to something else?
Yeah, I guess I'll just run through the rest of the guys really quick. Drake Thomas is probably the next biggest signing. He's a really good inside linebacker.
Yep.
That they are bringing back for just $8 million. I thought that was a great contract. You always, you're used to seeing the Super Bowl bump on paydays for these guys. I was amazed no team offered Drake more than 8, or he must just love Seattle, because for a player of his caliber, $8 million for 2 years, it seems really low to me. Halani got his extension tendered at $1 million. Ty Okada was tendered at $1 million. Josh Jones signed a 1-year contract. Chris Stoll signed a 2-year contract. Bobo was tendered at 3.5, and AJ Finley was re-signed as well. So those are all Hawks that are coming back to the team. 4 guys out in free agency. We have signed 0 outside players in free agency so far. So would love to see that creep up into the 1 or 2 category. But yeah, I think overall, roster's in really good shape. A lot of these departures are what we expected. we spent the money wisely, and now we got to look to the draft.
It's almost like being the Super Bowl winning team means that your team was pretty good. You know, you don't really have to worry about it.
To be a Super Bowl winning team and have your, third corner, second or third safety, fourth linebacker, and running back leave, that's not bad in terms of departure.
No.
I mean, Philly got gutted 2 years ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, next on our list, I have some Mariners discussion, and it's time. We haven't talked about this personally between ourselves, and I want to hear your thoughts. The Cal and Randy beef from the World Baseball Classic. What was your take on that? Did you have any hot discussions to be had?
Yeah, it is funny. It is. So basically, Cal snubbed him at the plate when Randy was trying to dap him up during the game against Mexico. Randy's out there representing Mexico, Cal for Team USA. And then after the game, Randy had a couple quotes basically flaming Cal. I don't think it's a big deal, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, Randy's just kidding, oh, they love each other, it's just his sense of humor. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure he was pissed. I'm pretty sure he was really annoyed, going to shake hands with a teammate during a World Baseball Classic game. And I can totally see Cal being so like rah Team USA, like, I'm not even going to shake your hand. We're competitors out here. And yeah, so I'm sure Randy's pissed and probably gave him an earful, but I think it'll be fine. I don't think this is going to fracture the locker room.
Yeah, I think in terms of the locker room, I'm not too concerned about the Randy Cal connection. What I will say is, there's a lot of eyes on the World Baseball Classic. When you're thinking about the U.S., it's technically sometimes not as big when you think about it like that, but the world is more keen on it. Randy has all of Mexico watching, supporting him, and for him to not get dapped up by his teammate is not a great look. I can see why Randy would be a little pissed. So, totally. and there's quotes that have come out, but we don't know the sarcastic intent. There's a lot of speculation that it was like sarcasm. I don't actually know if that was true. I feel like there was some real heat behind those words, but I agree with you that it probably was nothing that's going to spill over into the actual locker room in clubhouse during the season.
Yeah. And it was annoying. And you know what? I think the most important thing is I bet you $100 Cal kind of realized after the fact that it was annoying and probably apologized to Randy.
Yeah.
And, I bet you there's a text saying like, hey, man, my bad. I was getting too into it. And, if that happens, this is a non-issue. If for whatever reason Cal's like, fuck you, Randy, then that would be a problem. But I don't think we're going to get there.
I'll tell you what, the Mariners got on the front page of ESPN News for a whole 2 hours, which was very nice to see. That's the only thing we can ask for as Mariners fans after what was an almost World Series run.
Huge.
In terms of the World Baseball Classic and spring training, I want to shout out our boy Cole Young. Cole Young has had a little bit of a hot stretch while the World Baseball Classic has been going on, so not as many people have been talking about it. But Cole Young, 4 home runs, 2 doubles. He's currently 8 for 30 on the during spring training, so hitting .267, but an on-base percentage of .371. He's got 5 walks, slugging .733. Like, the guy's hitting for power right now. He's hitting to all parts of the field. It's looking really, really good. His OPS is 1.105. Like, he's hitting the shit out of the ball. So really good things coming from Cole Young. I wanted to shout him out there. With regards to the World Baseball Classic, I feel like Canzone has been a little underwhelming for Italy. I've been wanting to appreciate him more, but Cal's been doing his thing. Anybody you want to talk about?
It's just fun, man. We were well represented. I think we had 16 players in the total field, and now that it's been whittled down to 8, we're still doing good. We got Cal and Gabe for the U.S., Julio for the DR, Randy and Munoz got booted for Mexico. Sorry, guys. But Naylor for Canada. I'm excited. We get another, after all the hockey madness, we get USA Canada one more time. And if Naylor rips our hearts out, man, I'm going to be kind of excited for him, to be honest. But then Venezuela's still in it, so we still have Bizzardo. And then, Canzone and Mastroboni for Italy, our Italian brethren. And Dane Dunning for Korea. So, those are all the guys still kicking around.
Yeah.
USA got kicked in the teeth by Italy. That was a shocker, but we're still in it. We just got to beat Canada to advance.
Yeah, it's a fun time for baseball right now. The baseball season is heating up. We got basically 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks till the season starts, which is exciting. I am ready. Little shout out to Brendan Donovan, not playing as much, but he's still getting his ABs in. He is 9 for 21, hitting .429 during spring training. The guy is just a hitting machine. He's just going to hit and put the ball in play as much as he possibly can. And I'm sure they're just like, hey, just chill. You've proven yourself to us. Go prepare to be a leadoff hitter for the Mariners.
That's what I like to hear, man.
Yeah. So with all that being said, quick jump to the Kraken, because we not as keen on hockey here, but we have to talk about them because the Kraken are technically made a move for the to get better as they approach the playoffs. They traded their 2026 fourth and 2027 seventh round pick for forward Bobby McCann, and they have since gone 0-3. So not much has happened with regards to the Kraken. Do you have any thoughts? I feel like we've talked about it before. They're like 67 points and like fifth place and below every other team that is at their position in the rest of the NHL. There's not much to say.
Yeah, they're 29 and 34. I refuse to acknowledge overtime losses. Get better. You want our attention, Kraken? Get better. There are way too many good teams in the state of Washington. God, I almost said city and then I almost said country. But you got to get better if you want our attention.
Yep. All right, college basketball. It's time. We have to talk. I guess we have to talk the Gonzaga loss because Gonzaga is kind of the team to talk about. We have to talk the loss and then the WCC tournament win. So which do you want to talk about first?
Neither. I want to start with the other two because I'm going to talk about the Zags until you tell me to stop. So I want to start with Wazoo. Creeped into the WCC tournament and quickly lost to Portland. They were sitting at the 9 seed, I think, and lost to the University of Portland. Go Pilots. So making me feel better about our Gonzaga loss. But yeah, Portland revenged themselves after getting drubbed by Wazoo by 30 points. They beat them in the first round. So Wazoo's, in their short stint in the West Coast Conference, did not record a postseason victory. Hate to see it.
Yeah. We've been out on this Wazoo team for basically the entire season because they have yet to prove that they really deserve to be talked about, kind of similar to the Kraken. So not surprised to see them lose that first game, but to Portland made it feel a little bit sweeter for the Zags, I am sure. To jump to the UW games in the Big Ten tournament, they played USC. They were the 12th, or I guess they were the 12th and 13th seeds in the conference, and they both had the same record, so it was kind of either or. But UW ends up winning that game in overtime, 83-79, only to fall to Wisconsin today, 85-82, in what was a good game, good showing by the Huskies, all things considered. Quick discussion on that USC game. I think Zoom Diallo had one of his better games in terms of 22 points, 11 assists. He's prone to turnovers. He's a sophomore. He's figuring things out. His body is more that of a shooting guard. So the fact that they're trusting him as the point guard is impressive. I think overall I have been pleased with this Huskies team, but they did underperform on the season. Like, to watch them every game in and game out was probably a little disappointing, but I think they're still building where they want to be. They're going to lose Steinbach to the draft this year, I would bet, but they're building to where they want to be. In terms of the Wisconsin game today, it was. I mean, they let one guy score 34 points on them, John Blackwell. But other than that, Hans Steinbach goes for 25 and 16 rebounds. Zoom goes for 24 points, 7 assists. Like, that's the foundation is there to be a good team, and so we'll see if they can replace Steinbach. But they've just been riddled with injuries. They've only been playing 7 guys for the last few weeks. Like, it's been a really weird season. So for them to be that competitive against Wisconsin, I was very happy.
Totally. I think the USC win was awesome. Zoom was great. And then Wisconsin was almost some incredible found money. I mean,
yeah.
Wisconsin's going to be like a 5 or 6 seed in the tournament this year. They are a really good basketball team. And Blackwell is a monster guard. I'm not at all surprised to see him put up numbers like that. But Steinbach just, showing why he's going to be in the NBA. Kiss him goodbye. Heck of a last game, 25 and 16. The one that gets me really excited is, following one of his best games of the season against USC, Zoom was even better against Wisconsin, 24 and 7, really efficient from the field. Kamari Peterson went 4 for 10 from 3. So I just think, obviously, you're going to have a big gaping hole to replace where Han's leaving. But, if Zoom comes back, he's been showing me more and more as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think it's him. Wesley Yates has been one that's like, he either catches fire and has a really good game, or he's just shooting bricks off the side of the backboard.
He is up and down.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, Desmond Claude is a guy who got injured, messed up his foot early on in the season. We had, his name was like Jacob Ognasevich, who played 2 whole games for the Huskies before dealing. Or he played 2 games in the middle of the season and then got injured again after he had an injury before the season started. So it's just a team that was riddled with injuries. I think if they had the full team, there was a real shot at being competitive in the Big Ten. Not necessarily a top tier, but I think they could have been a top 8 team. So to finish where they did with all those injuries, I was very happy.
For sure. All right, let's move on to the big story. My team. Done with your team. On to my team, the Gonzaga Bulldogs. We did not talk about it last week, and it's shrinking into history. But the Zags did lose the last game of the regular season to St. Mary's. They got pretty well bludgeoned, 70-59. Their defense was not super sharp. They gave up far too many threes. St. Mary's shot 50% from three on 16 makes. So if you're wondering how you put up 70 against a defense this stout, that's how. But the other side of that was Gonzaga's offense was terrible. Mario probably had his worst game, 0 for 4 from the field in 20 minutes of play, 0 points scored. Ike was solid, Miller was solid, but nobody else really showed up. So that was a tough one. But since then, they followed it up. They beat the bricks off of Oregon State, and then in what was a very entertaining game, they pulled one out late against Santa Clara to win the WCC championship, 79-68. So first things first, eat it, WCC. Last season, Gonzaga's taking the title. We're taking it with us. There's no more WCC champions after we lose. But all jokes aside, Santa Clara, very good. They're currently projected to be one of the first 4 to sneak into the NCAA tournament, and they should absolutely be.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some bad losses, but they are a really, really talented basketball team. I was kind of blown away by how big and fast they were. And their defense can be quite strong. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them win a game or two in the tournament. But for the Zags, it was, Ike was really, really efficient, 7 for 7. But it was the Mario Davis-Vogel game is how I'm going to remember it. Tyon was also very good. He always seems to show up in big games, which I appreciate. But Mario went 6 for 12 from 3 to score all 21 of his points. And was just doing a good job keeping the offense rotating. And man, dude, this Davis-Vogel kid had the loudest 13, 6, and 8 I've ever watched. He is just really electric. And what I'll say, we're going to talk a little bit about tournament stuff.
Is he your Ben Gregg replacement? Is that what I'm hearing?
He's Ben Gregg as I always pictured Ben Gregg in my head, like with actual scoring chops. He's already the 3-point shooter, Ben Gregg is. He actually likes working on other scoring opportunities as well. But what I will say is, we're in to lose a lot of these guys this offseason. We're going to lose Worley, Miller, Grant Foster, Ike, for sure. Oh, and Braden Smith, which are 5 of the 8 guys we really play. But I'm not even that worried about it. If Mario and Davis come back, and obviously Braden Huff gets better from injury, that is going to be a really potent offense. I'm really excited to watch those guys next year. And they might both go to the NBA after next season. So, I'm just excited at the opportunity for one more year of this.
I just want to talk about the roster right now in terms of how it's changed over the course of the season. Steele Venters was a guy we came into the season being like, oh, that's going to be a guy who plays every game. He hits, 12 points from threes and stuff like that. He has been basically a nothing burger for the latter half of the season, I would say. And then the big question is the Braden Huff piece. Is he going? He's not going to be back by the end of this, or by the tournament. I really have heard no news.
Yeah, they're being very vague about it. He was supposed to be back near the end of the regular season and be able to ramp up through the WCC tournament. That did not happen. Last I heard, I think 2 weeks ago, he was still on crutches, which is obviously a very bad sign.
Yeah.
The suspicion is that they are not saying anything until they get their seed for the tournament, and then they will announce that he's out for the year. They just don't want that news to impact the kind of seed that they get.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about here in a minute. But I'm optimistic. I don't know, maybe 10% chance that he'll actually be back for the tournament.
If they make the second weekend, perhaps. Who knows?
Yeah. I don't know what it would take, but the team looks noticeably worse offensively. It's been a lot of pressure on Graham, and at some point against some team, Graham's not going to be able to have a 25-point night, and then what happens?
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's a team that you look at it, and with Braden Huff, there's a world where they are able to be efficient offensively for the entirety of the tournament. But with this, you're going to have an off night from Graham, or he's going to get in foul trouble, and it's going to be downhill from there, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, this year, I like the Zag team a lot. the top three are so dominant between Duke, Arizona, and Michigan that it's not like the COVID year where I feel like it really could be us. I don't really think it could be us this year. I would love to be proven wrong, but especially with Braden out, it's just like, okay, let's see how far we can get.
Yeah, you remember how early on in the season you were saying, and this could still be true, but you and John were both, you and Rosenberger, you're also John, but you were like, this is the best defensive Gonzaga basketball team we've ever seen, probably. Do you feel like that's still true?
Yes. It's up there. Now the problem with them is they'll have really rough defensive outings, like the 101 given up to Michigan, obviously giving up whatever they did, 87 to Portland. That was a disaster. So they'll have lapses, but when they're on, they can absolutely lock teams down. Big part of that's Worley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even Mario. We got a lot of really good perimeter defenders, a lot of length, and Gonzaga is not a program that historically is great defensively. So, I think there's a reasonable chance there is, but the question is they just have far too many. They used to be good for 90 a night, and they've had a lot of 50 to 65 point games.
Yeah,
that's just not going to cut it in the tournament.
No. Let's talk tournament though. Get into where you think they'll be seated. Where it sounds like you have some issues with their potential seeding, which we can talk about. If you need to talk through it, I can be your therapist for a little bit.
Please. Okay. So here's my thing. I am tough on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. I am. I've called them out where they need to be called out. The Portland loss is one of the worst losses in program history. And for what it's worth, Portland's good. They won 2 WCC tournament games this year. They aren't what they have been in terms of dregs of the WCC. But it is an embarrassing loss for a team that's arguing for top 10 in the country. They are a 3-loss team. They have lost to the number 3 team in the country, Michigan, which as far as I'm concerned could just as easily be the number 1 team in the country. They've lost to St. Mary's, their biggest rival, who they split the season with, and who is going to make the tournament as I think they're projected as a 7 or 8 seed right now. And they lost to Portland, which is horrible. But 1 bad loss, 2 really quality losses. Every other game they played, they've won. 28-3. They're 12th in the AP poll. For what it's worth, the top 3 teams have 2 losses. The next best team in the country in terms of Power 5 is Gonzaga at 28-3. I guess they're not technically Power 5, but point still stands.
Yep.
But they're all the way down to 12, which is okay, because again, I understand the logistics. But 12th in the AP poll, they are 6th in the net rankings. And they are currently projected by CBS Sports to have a 4 seed. Not horrible. If we get a 4 seed, I'm going to live with it. This team deserves a 3 seed, though, and I really want a 3 seed. The reason that distinction is so important this year, again, there are 3 teams that I do not want any business with. It's Arizona, Duke, and Michigan. We're projected to be a 4 seed in the West with Arizona as the 1. I don't want to get Arizona before I have to. I want to be a 3 seed and be able to meet them, in the Elite 8. But that's not currently how it's shaking out. My issues with the 4 seed is obviously, 12 divided by 4 is 3. Just based on the AP, we should be a 3 seed. We are 6th in the net, and we are currently being positioned like a 16 seed. The 3 seed in the West right now is Alabama, who has 8 losses and who we beat by 10 head-to-head. Last thing here, and this is getting a little bit nerdy. The net versus the AP poll. Top 4 teams are the same in both. Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Florida. Then in the AP, it goes Houston, UConn, Iowa State. And then Illinois 9 and we're 12. The net, same first 4. Then Illinois 5, Gonzaga's 6, and then Houston, Iowa State, UConn. So it's the exact same teams, except Illinois got bumped down like 4 spots, and we got bumped down like 7, 8 spots. Now, with that much consistency in these rankings, they're basically the same. We're still getting the short end of the stick, and even with the short end of the stick, we should be a 3. Why are we not a 3?
So, based on, I didn't realize Alabama was actually the team that is like being considered to be replacing Gonzaga. I haven't really looked at the entirety of where all the teams are lined up in the brackets, but if they have lost 8 games, like there's no reason that they should be above Gonzaga. I like as much as you like to say that you talk some sense around your Gonzaga Bulldogs. I talk the most sense because I have no affiliation for Gonzaga, and I can agree that like Gonzaga should be above Alabama between those two teams. And I don't know if there's another team that should be there, but Gonzaga at 30-3, this is, for all intents and purposes, the reason that they're not a top team is because they weren't blowing teams out in the WCC as much as they were. Is probably what it is. Like in a normal year, if Gonzaga was 30-3. They would probably be around the eights, around like AP poll number 8. I feel like that's kind of where they usually end up fringe top 2 seed, maybe you get a top 3 seed. And for them to be fringe 4 right now seems a little bit disrespectful to both the WCC and just to how basketball has been spread out because of NIL and stuff like that. Like general conferences are just better because there's more talent distribution. Everybody knows that, except for apparently the voters and people deciding these rankings. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things they're really benefiting. They've played a lot of ranked games, but they've won some and lost more of those. They're below 500 in their ranked games this season. In the SEC, 13-5, and in their ranked games, they lost to Florida, they lost to Tennessee, and then they beat Arkansas once, and they beat Tennessee once. They split that series with Tennessee. They also lost to Georgia. They lost to a couple bad teams. So I really think they're benefiting from the fact that the SEC is considered very deep this year. And, we saw this story last year, and they lost all their games in the first weekend. If you remember, the SEC had a historically bad first weekend of the tournament after having the most teams ever in a conference make it. And things are setting up for that to happen again. 17-16? Auburn this year? They are 17-16, 7-11 in SEC play, 4 games below 500 in SEC play, and there's a big push for them to be one of the last 4 in to make the tournament. So, people are just sniffing the SEC's butt a little bit, and I think because they play in a league where, you lost to, Georgia, great loss, fantastic loss. It's like, well, you're not playing Portland's 10 times, where if you slip up one time, it looks terrible. Part of me wishes I was in the SEC, just because then, 7 losses wouldn't matter. If you're the Zags, 2 losses matter.
We've talked about this before, but the SEC and Big Ten have completed the play each other's hard games at the end so that they're all ranked and so that everything looks better on paper. There's also the addition of the fact that like the Miami Ohio thing where they just lost their first game of the season. I think they were 31-0 going into their conference tournament game, and they just lost to University of Massachusetts or something. But they just lost their first game, and they have been complaining about the entire season about how nobody wanted to play them because they were too good in terms of if an SEC team lost to one of those teams, then it would look that much worse for the SEC as a whole. It feels like the SEC as a conference is like, hey, we cannot allow any of these teams to play even a sniff of a good team that's from a bad conference or a supposedly bad conference, because if they lose, it ruins a lot of the credibility of these higher end conferences. So the SEC has a real tight grip on that, and I think that's kind of the issue with bracketology and the bracket setup as it is right now. It's the same thing with college football. We talked about it before, but it's just I hate how it feels even as a UW fan. I hate that the Big Ten should not have 11 automatic bids basically because they're the biggest conference with supposedly the best talent. It should be based on the resumes, and these teams should be playing each other and actually having games that matter at the beginning of the season, because at the end of the season they're just playing the best teams in their conference.
Yeah. I just think the best argument is, the AP is voters, the net is statistics. Between those two, you have a really good view of things. It's like, okay, maybe there are certain things the statistics aren't picking up on that the coaches are. But it's, okay, the 2 biggest hosed teams moving from net to AP are Gonzaga and Illinois, who are, both still in the top 15. Even with their AP rankings, they should be a 3 seed. And, it's just one of those things where, and they're also 30-3. It's not like they have crazy statistics and 9 losses. You can't point to their record. And they beat Alabama head-to-head. Like, what else could they do?
Yeah.
Other than, I guess, be a 2-loss team that didn't lose to Portland to argue that they should be a 3 seed. And do you really need to be a 2-loss team to argue that you should be a 3 seed?
No. We could talk about this all day, but it has been a nice, solid 50 minutes of pod. Do you want to touch on anything else before we get out of here?
No, that's good. I'm glad I got this rant in so that if they get the 3 seed, I'll look like an idiot. But if I'm right, then I get to be annoyed in advance.
I'm annoyed for you, man. The basketball setup and bracketology. Is that Lunardi who does bracketology? Is that the right guy? I feel like I don't know if he's in the SEC's pocket, but this guy.
Big Duke SEC guy. I can't stand it.
All right. Well, for John Carey, I'm Tyler Card. This has been the Sound Up Seattle podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of Sound Up Seattle, please feel free to drop a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff if you're watching on YouTube. You can drop a follow if you are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find Sound Up Seattle on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, all at Sound Up Seattle, all lowercase, all one word. Email us questions, comments, concerns, your specific brackets. If you have any brackets that you want to send us for next week, once they get those filled out, we will be starting our bracket here next week. It's going to be a really fun pod, as we always do. Other than that, guys, you can find me, Tyler, at TyCart50 everywhere it's important, and you can find John.
Spending way too much time on bracketology.com.
This guy, he's clicking on every single team and every single potential team. It's rough out there.
Can't wait for Sunday, baby.
Oh, yeah. With all that being said, it's got to be a Go Hawks. I mean, we talked Hawks for most of this. I guess you could
go Hawks.
You could say Go Zags. I understand.
You know what? But I'm not.
It's over. Like, you don't have to worry about it right now.
Yeah. One